Sunday dinner at my parents' house in suburban Dallas always felt like a performance. But tonight, Lucy decided to make me the main act. My sister stood up dramatically, wineglass in hand, and announced to our entire extended family, "Shirley needs to stop playing pretend entrepreneur. Your little online thing isn't real business." The dining room erupted in laughter. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and my parents all nodded in agreement while staring at me with that familiar mixture of pity and disappointment. I sat quietly, fork halfway to my mouth, and simply said, "Understood." But inside, I was already composing Monday morning's email to my investment firm. Monday morning sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my downtown Manhattan penthouse office as I sipped coffee from my favorite ceramic mug. The city stretched out below me, alive with possibility, while I contemplated the email I was about to send. My family had no idea that their quiet, unsuccessful Shirley controlled a $47 million investment portfolio through my shell company, Sterling Ventures. The journey to this moment had started 6 years ago, when I dropped out of Stanford Business School during my second year. While my classmates studied case analyses, I was building my first successful online arbitrage business from my dorm room. The dropout decision devastated my parents, Robert and Helen, who had sacrificed so much for my education. Lucy, fresh from her Wharton MBA program, offered to help me find entry-level positions at various corporations. Her condescending kindness stung worse than outright ridicule. But I persevered. My online ventures evolved from simple product arbitrage to sophisticated digital marketing consultancies. Within 3 years, I had quietly accumulated enough capital to begin angel investing. I chose to remain anonymous, operating through Sterling Ventures to avoid family scrutiny. The decision proved wise as my portfolio grew exponentially. Tech startups, sustainable energy companies, and innovative healthcare solutions all thrived under my guidance. Marcus, my 26-year-old assistant, knocked gently on my office door. His efficiency and discretion made him invaluable to maintaining my low profile. "Good morning, Shirley. I have the Techflow Solutions files you requested." Techflow Solutions, Lucy's pride and joy. Her successful tech startup that had launched 18 months ago with $20 million in seed funding that came directly from Sterling Ventures, though Lucy remained blissfully unaware of the source. She believed her charisma and business acumen had attracted anonymous Silicon Valley investors. "Marcus, pull up the complete Techflow investment summary," I said, settling behind my mahogany desk. The files revealed everything. Sterling Ventures held 60% ownership of Techflow through a complex structure of investment vehicles. Lucy received credit as founder and CEO, but my capital and strategic guidance had built her company from concept to current valuation of $45 million. The irony tasted bitter as yesterday's humiliation replayed in my mind. Janet Morrison, my corporate attorney, arrived precisely at 9 o'clock. Her silver hair and sharp business suits commanded respect in every boardroom she entered. "I understand you want to discuss the Techflow investment. I want to begin withdrawal proceedings," I stated simply. Janet's expression remained professionally neutral, though I detected concern in her gray eyes. "Surely, that represents $20 million in seed capital plus accumulated interest. Withdrawal would trigger automatic bankruptcy clauses. I'm aware of the consequences." Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "The emotional impact on your family relationships could be severe. Perhaps we should consider alternative approaches." I appreciated their concern, but years of condescension had crystallized my resolve. Every family gathering brought fresh reminders of my perceived failures. Lucy's success story grew more elaborate with each telling, while my achievements remained invisible. Last night had simply been the final straw. "Begin the legal documentation," I instructed Janet. "I want withdrawal notices prepared for delivery by Wednesday." As my team reluctantly began preparations, I reflected on the broader irony. Sterling Ventures had funded 12 startups in the past 4 years. 11 had succeeded beyond initial projections, creating hundreds of jobs and generating millions in revenue. Only Lucy's company required constant intervention to prevent complete collapse. The withdrawal process would expose everything. Lucy would learn that her mysterious, silent partner and biggest critic were the same person. Our parents would discover their disappointment had been directed at the wrong daughter. The family dynamics that had defined our entire lives were about to shatter completely. But perhaps some foundations needed to crumble before genuine relationships could develop. Tuesday evening found me sitting in my childhood bedroom, staring at faded photographs on the nightstand. The images captured two sisters with identical smiles, but vastly different destinies. Lucy had always been the golden child, effortlessly earning praise for achievements that seemed to come naturally. I was the one who struggled, questioned, and ultimately chose the unconventional path. Our divergent trajectories became clear during college. Lucy thrived at Wharton, networking with future business leaders and building the social capital that would serve her throughout her career. Meanwhile, I questioned everything about traditional business education. The case studies felt outdated, the theoretical frameworks disconnected from real-world innovation. When I finally dropped out to pursue online entrepreneurship, the family disappointment was palpable. Lucy tried to be supportive in her own way. She would call regularly during my early startup days, offering advice about networking events and professional development opportunities. But her suggestions always involved abandoning my independent ventures to join established corporations. She genuinely couldn't understand why anyone would choose uncertainty over security. The contrast became more pronounced as Lucy's career flourished. She landed prestigious consulting positions immediately after graduation, working with Fortune 500 companies on digital transformation projects. Her natural charisma made her a favorite among clients and colleagues. When she announced plans to launch Techflow solutions, the family celebrated her entrepreneurial courage. I remembered attending her launch party 2 years ago, standing quietly in the corner while Lucy delivered an inspiring speech about innovation and risk-taking. The venue buzzed with venture capitalists, tech journalists, and industry leaders. Lucy worked the room effortlessly, securing commitments and building partnerships that would fuel Techflow's growth. What nobody knew was that I had spent the previous month conducting due diligence on Lucy's business plan through Sterling Ventures. Her concept had merit, but the execution strategy contained fundamental flaws. The market analysis was superficial, the competitive landscape inadequately understood, and the financial projections unrealistically optimistic. Without substantial guidance and capital injection, Techflow would fail within 8 months. So, I made the decision to invest anonymously, not because Lucy deserved success, but because failure would devastate our parents. They had already endured enough disappointment from my unconventional choices. Lucy's public failure would break their hearts completely. The investment came with conditions. Sterling Ventures insisted on hiring specific employees, including single mothers Sarah Martinez and Maria Thompson, who had exceptional skills but limited opportunities. We required detailed monthly financial reports and strategic planning sessions with senior management. Most importantly, we maintained veto power over major business decisions. Lucy initially resisted the oversight, but $20 million commanded attention. She grudgingly accepted our conditions while publicly taking credit for the company's rapid growth. Techflow's success story became Lucy's personal triumph in family circles, complete with magazine interviews and speaking engagements at business conferences. The irony deepened when Lucy became engaged to Brad Harrison, a prominent venture capitalist whose firm had unsuccessfully competed to fund Techflow. Their relationship blossomed partly because Lucy's apparent success impressed Brad's social circle. He admired her business acumen and independent spirit, qualities that existed primarily because of my hidden support. Last Sunday's dinner conversation had focused extensively on Lucy's upcoming international expansion plans. She spoke confidently about securing additional funding rounds and establishing European operations. Our parents hung on every word, beaming with pride at their successful daughter. Uncle Frank asked pointed questions about my own business prospects, while Aunt Margaret suggested I consider applying for entry-level positions at Lucy's company. The casual cruelty of their dismissal had become routine over the years. But hearing Lucy describe plans to fire several employees, including the single mothers I had specifically requested be hired, crystallized my growing resentment. She had transformed from grateful recipient of anonymous support into an entitled executive who viewed people as expendable resources. That night, Lying in my childhood bed, surrounded by memories of sisterly adventures and shared dreams, I realized our relationship had become fundamentally corrupted by deception. Lucy's success rested on foundations she didn't even recognize, while my achievements remained invisible to the people whose approval I craved most. Perhaps it was time for truth to emerge, regardless of the consequences. Wednesday morning arrived, gray and drizzling, matching my mood as I prepared for an undercover visit to Techflow's offices. I had scheduled a consultation appointment under my middle name, posing as a potential client seeking digital marketing services. The deception felt necessary to observe Lucy's operation firsthand before finalizing my withdrawal decision. Techflow occupied 3 floors of a gleaming downtown Dallas tower, with modern glass conference rooms and expensive ergonomic furniture throughout the workspace. The reception area featured oversized photographs of Lucy speaking at various industry events, along with framed magazine articles highlighting her entrepreneurial journey. Everything projected success and sophistication. But conversations with employees revealed troubling patterns. During my consultation meeting, Marketing Director Angela Rodriguez mentioned several recent departures from the leadership team. "The work environment has become quite intense," she confided quietly. "Lucy expects everyone to match her energy level, which isn't always sustainable." I requested a brief tour of the facilities, ostensibly to understand their operational capabilities. The software development area buzzed with activity, but the atmosphere felt tense rather than collaborative. Programmers worked with headphones on, avoiding eye contact and conversation. The contrast with other successful companies in my portfolio was striking. After the official consultation, I lingered in the building lobby cafe and struck up conversations with current and former employees. Sarah Martinez, one of the single mothers whose hiring I had specifically requested, shared her recent termination story over coffee. "Lucy called me into her office last week and said the company needed to streamline operations," Sarah explained, her voice heavy with disappointment. "I had just received excellent performance reviews, but apparently my position was eliminated for budget reasons. Meanwhile, they're hiring expensive consultants and renovating the executive floor with imported marble." Maria Thompson's story proved even more disturbing. "Lucy publicly berated me during a team meeting for questioning a client strategy that I knew would fail," Maria revealed. "She said my input wasn't valuable because I lacked proper business education. 2 days later, she fired me for creating negative team dynamics." These conversations contradicted everything Lucy had told our family about Techflow's positive workplace culture and employee satisfaction. I began to understand why the company required constant intervention from Sterling Ventures to maintain basic operational stability. My investigation deepened when I contacted David Chen, Techflow's lead software engineer. David had developed most of the company's core technology platforms, but Lucy consistently took public credit for product innovation. "I don't mind the recognition going to leadership," David explained diplomatically, "but it becomes problematic when strategic decisions are made by people who don't understand the technical implications." David described several instances where Lucy had committed to client deliverables that were technically impossible within the promised timeframes. The development team worked unsustainable hours trying to meet unrealistic expectations, leading to burnout and resignations among key personnel. Perhaps most damaging was David's account of the recent tech conference incident. Lucy had apparently observed a competitor's presentation on innovative customer engagement platforms and subsequently instructed her team to develop identical features. "She said inspiration comes from many sources," David noted carefully. "But their demo looked remarkably similar to what we released 3 weeks later." Security footage from the conference, obtained through my corporate intelligence contacts, revealed the full truth. Lucy had deliberately positioned herself near the competitor's presentation area during their setup process, photographing their prototype designs and technical specifications. She then rushed back to Techflow with stolen concepts, claiming them as original innovations. The pattern became clear through additional employee interviews. Lucy possessed exceptional networking and presentation skills, but she consistently appropriated other people's ideas and contributions. Her business success rested on manipulation rather than genuine value creation. Young intern Jessica Walsh shared the most heartbreaking story. "Lucy screamed at me in front of the entire marketing team because I accidentally scheduled a client call during her yoga class," Jessica recalled. She said unprofessional behavior like mine reflected poorly on her leadership and threatened to contact my university about my internship performance. Jessica was 20 years old, working unpaid to gain industry experience while carrying a full course load at Southern Methodist University. Lucy's public humiliation had reduced her to tears and seriously damaged her confidence about pursuing a business career. As Wednesday afternoon faded into evening, I compiled my findings with growing anger and disappointment. The sister I had anonymously supported for 18 months had become someone I barely recognized. Lucy's treatment of employees, appropriation of others' work, and financial mismanagement violated every principle I valued about ethical business leadership. But the investigation had revealed something else equally significant. Lucy's apparent business acumen was largely fictional. Techflow's success depended entirely on my strategic guidance and financial support, filtered through Sterling Ventures' oversight requirements. Without continued intervention, the company would collapse within months due to fundamental management failures. The withdrawal decision no longer felt like revenge. It had become a necessary correction to prevent further damage to innocent employees and business partners who trusted Lucy's leadership. Thursday morning brought crystal clear skies and the kind of crisp autumn air that made decisive action feel inevitable. I convened a full strategy session with my investment team at Sterling Ventures' private conference room, 30 floors above the Manhattan streets where I had built my entrepreneurial dreams. Patricia Lawson, my senior portfolio manager, spread financial documents across the mahogany conference table with the precision of a surgeon. Her 15 years managing high-stakes investments had taught her to separate emotion from analysis, but even Patricia seemed troubled by the Techflow situation. "The numbers tell a complicated story," Patricia began, adjusting her reading glasses. "Techflow's revenue growth has been impressive, but cash flow management remains problematic. They're burning through capital at rates that would concern any responsible investor." Kevin Walsh, my financial analyst, pulled up detailed spending reports on his laptop. Executive compensation increased 40% this year, primarily driven by Lucy's salary and benefits package. Meanwhile, research and development funding has been reduced by 25%. The contrast with my other portfolio companies was stark. Sustainable energy startup Green Tech Solutions had used their Sterling Ventures investment to hire world-class engineers and develop breakthrough battery technology. Healthcare innovation company Medcore had focused exclusively on product development and regulatory approval processes. Both companies operated with lean executive structures and prioritized long-term value creation over short-term profits. "Show me the employee retention analysis," I requested. Kevin's data painted a disturbing picture. Techflow's turnover rate exceeded 60% annually, with most departures occurring among technical staff and middle management. Exit interviews consistently cited hostile workplace culture and lack of professional development opportunities as primary concerns. For comparison, Kevin noted, our other portfolio companies average 12% annual turnover and receive outstanding employer ratings on professional review websites. Ruth Daniels, my corporate attorney specializing in investment contracts, outlined the legal framework governing Sterling Ventures' relationship with Techflow. The original investment agreement includes specific performance clauses and withdrawal provisions. Poor management practices or financial mismanagement trigger automatic review processes. "What exactly constitutes grounds for withdrawal?" I asked. Ruth consulted her legal notes carefully. Misrepresentation of company performance, violation of agreed employment practices, or material changes to business strategy without investor approval. Based on your investigation findings, Techflow has potentially violated all three conditions. Samuel Rodriguez, my newest legal team member, raised an important consideration. Withdrawal would trigger immediate bankruptcy proceedings unless alternative funding sources emerge within 30 days. The impact on current employees could be severe. I appreciated his concern for innocent workers caught in Lucy's mismanagement. But continuing to enable destructive leadership served no one's long-term interests. The employees Lucy had fired deserved justice, and current staff members needed protection from further abuse. "Patricia, what's your professional recommendation?" I asked. She paused thoughtfully before responding. "From a purely financial perspective, Techflow represents our portfolio's worst-performing investment. The management team demonstrates consistent poor judgment, and market conditions suggest limited growth potential. Withdrawal makes rational sense. But the personal complications are unprecedented, Kevin added. We've never withdrawn from a family member's company before. The observation highlighted the surreal nature of my situation. I had spent 18 months anonymously funding my sister's success while enduring her public ridicule about my business failures. The psychological impact had been more damaging than any financial loss could be. Lucy doesn't know Sterling Ventures represents her biggest critic, I noted. She's been taking credit for success while remaining oblivious to the guidance and capital that made it possible. Ruth began preparing withdrawal documentation, while I contemplated the broader implications. Lucy would likely assume corporate sabotage or market manipulation had destroyed her company. The truth about her silent partner's identity would emerge during bankruptcy proceedings, but by then the damage would be irreversible. Yet continuing the deception felt equally problematic. Lucy's behavior toward employees had become genuinely harmful, and her financial mismanagement threatened everyone's livelihoods. My anonymous support was enabling destructive patterns rather than promoting positive change. Prepare formal withdrawal notices for Friday delivery, I decided. Include complete documentation of performance failures and contract violations. Make sure Lucy understands this isn't arbitrary or personal. Patricia nodded professionally. The board meeting will be scheduled for Friday morning. Legal requirements mandate 48-hour notice for emergency sessions involving major investor withdrawals. As my team dispersed to handle logistics, I remained alone in the conference room, staring out at the city that had welcomed my entrepreneurial ambitions when my own family couldn't. Tomorrow would bring chaos, confrontation, and the end of comfortable illusions that had defined our relationship for years. But perhaps honesty, however painful, offered the only path toward authentic connection. Friday morning descended on Techflow's headquarters like a natural disaster that everyone could see coming but nobody could prevent. I positioned myself in a coffee shop across the street from Lucy's building, watching through floor-to-ceiling windows as expensive cars pulled up to the entrance. Emergency board meetings attracted serious attention from investors, lawyers, and crisis management consultants. My phone buzzed with updates from Marcus, who had contacts throughout the Dallas business community. The board members started arriving at 7:30, he reported. Legal teams from 3 different firms are involved, plus representatives from 2 competing investment groups. The Sterling Ventures withdrawal notice had reached Techflow's board at exactly 9 o'clock Thursday evening, triggering 24 hours of frantic damage control efforts. Lucy had spent most of the night on conference calls with attorneys, trying to understand how her mysterious silent partner could legally destroy everything she had built. Catherine Morrison, Techflow's lead board member, emerged from the building looking exhausted after 3 hours of emergency deliberations. Her silver Mercedes sedan sat idle in the parking garage while she paced the sidewalk, speaking intensely into her phone. Even from across the street, her body language conveyed desperation. Jerome Patrick, another board member with extensive venture capital experience, followed Catherine outside after 20 minutes. Their animated conversation suggested serious disagreement about potential solutions. Jerome's reputation for brutal honesty meant he was probably explaining exactly how impossible their situation had become. Lucy's assistant Amy rushed out of the building carrying boxes of documents, clearly implementing some kind of emergency protocol. The sight reminded me of disaster movies where office workers evacuate before the building collapses. Techflow was about to experience its own controlled demolition. My phone rang with a call from our parents' house. Lucy's panicked voice filled my ear, barely coherent through tears and hyperventilation. Surely something terrible is happening. Someone is trying to destroy my company. I need emergency funding, maybe $500,000 from Mom and Dad's retirement account. The desperation in her voice triggered unexpected sympathy. I had anticipated Lucy's downfall with satisfaction, but hearing her genuine terror reminded me that underneath her arrogance lived the sister who had once shared bedtime stories and childhood dreams. What exactly happened? I asked, maintaining my cover. Our biggest investor is withdrawing their funding immediately. $20 million just disappeared overnight without explanation. The board says we'll be bankrupt within 60 days unless we find replacement capital. Lucy's explanation contained interesting omissions. She didn't mention the employee terminations, financial mismanagement, or stolen competitor ideas that had triggered Sterling Ventures' withdrawal. From her perspective, the crisis had emerged from nowhere, like a random act of corporate violence. "Have you contacted other potential investors?" I suggested. "Brad is making calls to his network, but everyone wants detailed financial audits before considering emergency funding. The due diligence process takes months, not weeks. By then, Techflow will be completely finished." Brad's involvement added another layer of complexity to the situation. His venture capital firm had unsuccessfully competed to fund Techflow's initial launch, losing out to Sterling Ventures' superior terms. Now he was desperately trying to save his fiancée's company using professional connections that had previously rejected Lucy's business plan. Local business reporters had apparently picked up the bankruptcy rumors, because Lucy mentioned receiving calls from Dallas Morning News and Forbes magazine requesting comment on Techflow's financial difficulties. The publicity would make finding replacement funding even more challenging, as potential investors avoided companies with negative media coverage. "Amy is helping me prepare damage control statements," Lucy continued. "But how do you explain that your biggest investor just disappeared without giving any reasons?" Her question revealed how completely Lucy misunderstood the situation. Sterling Ventures hadn't disappeared. We had provided detailed documentation of management failures and contract violations. Lucy simply chose to ignore evidence that contradicted her self-image as a successful entrepreneur. Sarah Martinez called me that afternoon with an unexpected update. "Several former Techflow employees are planning to share their experiences publicly," she explained. "Lucy's treatment of staff members has been documented through emails, performance reviews, and witness testimony. The timing seems appropriate given current circumstances." The revelation added another dimension to Lucy's crisis. Bad publicity about workplace culture would make replacing Sterling Ventures' funding virtually impossible. No reputable investor wanted to associate with companies that abused employees or operated with questionable ethical standards. Maria Thompson had apparently contacted employment attorneys about potential legal action regarding wrongful termination and hostile workplace environment. Lucy created a paper trail of her own bad behavior, Maria noted. Performance reviews contradict termination reasons, and several witnesses can verify discriminatory treatment. By evening, Lucy's situation had deteriorated from financial emergency to complete corporate collapse. Brad called to inform our parents that his firm couldn't ethically invest in Techflow, given emerging information about management practices and employee relations. The professional distance he was creating suggested their personal relationship might not survive the business failure. Lucy's final phone call that night lasted nearly 2 hours as she broke down completely to our mother. Through the speaker, I could hear raw anguish that transcended professional disappointment and touched something deeper about identity, family expectations, and personal worth. "I don't understand how this happened so quickly," Lucy sobbed. "Yesterday I was planning international expansion. Today I'm facing bankruptcy and public humiliation. Someone deliberately targeted my company for destruction." Her words contained a grain of truth that made me profoundly uncomfortable. Sterling Ventures had indeed deliberately targeted Techflow for withdrawal, though Lucy's own actions had provided ample justification. The line between justice and revenge felt increasingly blurred as I watched my sister's world crumble in real time. Saturday afternoon brought unseasonably warm weather to Dallas, but the atmosphere inside our parents' house felt arctic as family members gathered for what everyone understood would be a pivotal conversation. Lucy sat curled in the corner of the living room sofa, wrapped in the same quilt that had comforted us through childhood illnesses and disappointments. Our parents had called the emergency meeting after spending Friday night researching bankruptcy proceedings and corporate law, trying to understand how their successful daughter's thriving company could disappear so suddenly. Uncle Frank and Aunt Margaret arrived early, along with family friend Pastor Williams, who had officiated our confirmations and provided guidance during previous family crises. Lucy looked fragile in a way I had never seen before. Her usual polished appearance had been replaced by sweatpants and an oversized college t-shirt, her hair pulled back carelessly, and her eyes swollen from crying. The transformation from confident executive to vulnerable young woman struck me with unexpected force. "Tell us everything from the beginning," Dad requested gently, settling into his favorite armchair with the patience he had shown during our childhood confessions. Lucy's voice shook as she described the previous 48 hours. Techflow received notice Thursday evening that our primary investor was withdrawing all funding immediately. $20 million just vanished without explanation or opportunity for discussion. She painted Sterling Ventures as a mysterious corporate entity that had provided excellent terms initially, but had always maintained suspicious anonymity. They demanded extensive oversight and reporting requirements that seemed intrusive, but their capital made everything possible. Now I think they were gathering information to destroy us strategically. The irony of Lucy describing my careful guidance as suspicious manipulation highlighted how completely she misunderstood our business relationship. Every oversight requirement had been designed to prevent exactly the kind of management failures that ultimately triggered my withdrawal. Brad arrived precisely at 3 o'clock, still wearing his golf attire from an aborted weekend outing. His usual confidence seemed subdued as he greeted everyone politely and took a seat beside Lucy on the sofa. The physical space he maintained between them spoke volumes about his emotional retreat from the crisis. My firm conducted preliminary research on Sterling Ventures, Brad reported professionally. They represent a sophisticated investment group with substantial resources and an excellent track record. Their other portfolio companies are thriving, which makes the Techflow withdrawal particularly puzzling. Dad turned toward me with familiar expectations. Shirley, you've been quiet throughout this discussion. What's your perspective on the situation? The moment of truth had arrived sooner than I had anticipated. Everyone stared at me expectantly, waiting for insights about business crises from someone they considered a failed entrepreneur. The condescension felt almost quaint compared to the nuclear revelation I was about to deliver. Actually, I began carefully. I have more direct knowledge of Sterling Ventures than anyone realizes. Mom leaned forward with maternal concern. Did you research them online? We've been trying to find information about their investment philosophy and decision-making criteria. Sterling Ventures is my company, I stated simply. The silence that followed felt like the pause before thunder after lightning strikes. Everyone processed my words at different speeds, with expressions ranging from confusion to disbelief to dawning comprehension. Lucy spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper. That's impossible. Sterling Ventures invested $20 million in Techflow. You don't have that kind of money. I pulled out my phone and showed them Sterling Ventures' official website, with my photograph prominently displayed on the leadership page alongside my educational credentials and investment philosophy. The evidence was undeniable, but the family stared at the screen as if it were written in a foreign language. I've been angel investing for 4 years through Sterling Ventures, I explained patiently. My portfolio includes 12 companies across various industries, with a combined valuation exceeding $47 million. Techflow was one of my investments. Uncle Frank spoke for everyone when he asked, "How is that possible? We thought your online businesses were barely profitable." The question encapsulated years of family assumptions and casual dismissal. I had deliberately maintained a modest lifestyle to avoid exactly this kind of scrutiny, but the deception had allowed my achievements to remain completely invisible to the people whose approval I craved most. I chose to keep my success private because every family gathering became a lecture about finding real employment, I replied. It seemed easier to let everyone believe I was struggling than to deal with questions and expectations about money. Lucy's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine landing on different combinations. Confusion gave way to anger, then disbelief, then something approaching rage as the implications became clear. "You deliberately destroyed my company," she accused, standing up abruptly. "This whole thing was planned revenge for family dinners and casual comments. You sabotaged everything I worked for because your feelings were hurt." The accusation stung because it contained elements of truth wrapped around fundamental misunderstanding. Yes, Sunday's humiliation had triggered my final decision. But Lucy's behavior toward employees and financial mismanagement provided legitimate grounds for any responsible investor to withdraw support. I withdrew funding because Techflow violated multiple terms of our investment agreement, I responded factually. Employee terminations without cause, misappropriation of intellectual property, and financial mismanagement all triggered automatic review clauses. Brad's venture capital experience allowed him to understand the legal framework better than anyone else. Those are standard provisions in investment contracts, he confirmed reluctantly. If Sterling Ventures documented violations properly, withdrawal was probably legally justified. Lucy whirled toward Brad with betrayal written across her features. You're taking her side? After everything we've been through together? I'm not taking sides, Brad replied carefully. But if what Shirley says is true about employee treatment and financial practices, any investor would have serious concerns. Pastor Williams, who had remained quietly observant throughout the confrontation, spoke with the wisdom that had guided our family through previous conflicts. Perhaps we should focus on understanding rather than assigning blame. This revelation changes our perspective on both sisters' achievements and struggles. Mom looked between Lucy and me with maternal confusion. Why didn't you tell us about your success, Shirley? We would have been proud and supportive. Would you have been? I asked gently. Every conversation about my career became suggestions to apply for corporate positions or criticism of unconventional choices. I learned to avoid the topic entirely. Dad processed the situation with his characteristic analytical approach. So, Lucy's company was successful partly because of Shirley's investment and guidance, while Shirley's achievements remained hidden to avoid family pressure. Both of you were managing deception in different ways. The observation highlighted how family dynamics had corrupted both our careers and our relationship. Lucy had thrived under anonymous support while taking full public credit, while I had hidden genuine success to avoid unwanted attention and expectations. Lucy collapsed back onto the sofa, her anger dissolving into something deeper and more painful. I always knew you were smarter than me, she whispered. Your business instincts and analytical skills were obvious even when we were kids. Part of me was cruel because I felt threatened by your potential. The admission hung in the air like incense, sacred and transformative. For the first time in years, Lucy had acknowledged the insecurity and jealousy that had motivated her treatment of me. The recognition didn't excuse her behavior, but it made the damage feel less personal and more healing. Brad moved closer to Lucy on the sofa and took her hand firmly. I fell in love with you, not your company or your success. If you're willing to learn from these mistakes and build something better, I want to be part of that journey. His declaration surprised everyone, especially Lucy, who had clearly expected him to abandon their relationship along with her failed business venture. The gesture suggested their connection might survive the crisis and emerge stronger through honest foundation. Pastor Williams concluded our family meeting with a prayer for wisdom, forgiveness, and new beginnings. As we held hands in the circle that had comforted us through countless difficulties, I felt something shift in our family dynamic. Truth, however painful, had created space for authentic relationships to develop. 2 months later, autumn had transformed into winter, as Lucy and I sat across from each other in a downtown Dallas coffee shop, reviewing business plans for our new joint venture. The setting felt symbolic, neutral territory where we could build something fresh without the baggage of family history or hidden agendas. Sisters Ventures had emerged from extensive conversations about our complementary skills and shared values. Lucy brought exceptional networking abilities, public relations expertise, and hard-earned lessons about ethical leadership. I contributed strategic planning, financial resources, and connections throughout the investment community. Together, we represented a formidable team focused on supporting female entrepreneurs who faced barriers similar to our own experiences. Grace Martinez wants to schedule another consultation about her sustainable packaging startup, Lucy reported, scrolling through her phone with newfound humility about her role in our partnership. She's particularly interested in our mentorship program and connections to environmentally conscious investors. Grace represented exactly the kind of entrepreneur we wanted to support. Brilliant, dedicated, and struggling to access capital because traditional investors couldn't recognize her potential. As a single mother working 2 jobs while developing biodegradable alternatives to plastic packaging, she embodied resilience and innovation that deserved recognition and resources. Schedule her for Thursday afternoon, I suggested. I want to review her latest prototype designs before we meet. The intellectual property protection strategy needs refinement, but her core concept could revolutionize food service industries. Our partnership had evolved naturally over 8 weeks of rebuilding trust and establishing clear communication. Lucy handled client relationships, public presentations, and media engagement, while I focused on due diligence, strategic planning, and capital allocation. The division of responsibilities played to our respective strengths without creating the hierarchical tensions that had poisoned our previous dynamic. Techflow's bankruptcy had concluded with minimal drama after Lucy chose cooperation over litigation. She had publicly acknowledged management failures, personally apologized to terminated employees, and worked with bankruptcy trustees to ensure fair treatment of all stakeholders. The process had been humbling but ultimately liberating, freeing her from the pressure of maintaining false success. Sarah Martinez and Maria Thompson had both joined Sisters Ventures as senior consultants, bringing valuable insights about workplace culture and employee development. Their presence served as constant reminders about the human impact of business decisions and the importance of treating all team members with dignity and respect. Brad and Lucy's relationship had not only survived the crisis, but deepened through honest communication about values, expectations, and long-term goals. Their wedding was planned for spring, with a ceremony focused on authenticity rather than corporate networking or social media presentation. Brad's venture capital firm had become an unofficial partner in Sisters Ventures' mission, providing additional resources and industry connections. Our parents had required weeks to fully process the revelations about both daughters' careers, but they had eventually embraced their new understanding with characteristic grace. Dad particularly enjoyed learning about investment strategies and market analysis, while Mom took pride in Sisters Ventures' focus on supporting working mothers and underrepresented entrepreneurs. The transformation extended beyond business success to personal growth for both Lucy and me. I had learned to communicate my achievements and needs directly, rather than hiding behind anonymous support or passive-aggressive withdrawal. Lucy had developed genuine empathy for employees and business partners, replacing her previous entitlement with earned confidence built on ethical practices. Our first major success story came from supporting Jennifer Walsh, a military veteran developing cybersecurity solutions for small businesses. She had struggled to access traditional funding because investors couldn't understand her target market or appreciate her innovative approach to data protection. Sisters Ventures provided seed capital, strategic guidance, and connections that helped her secure a major government contract worth $3.2 million. The Forbes interview requests keep coming, Lucy mentioned, reviewing email from various business publications. They want to cover our story about sisters overcoming rivalry to build successful partnerships. Accept the interview, but focus on our portfolio companies rather than family drama, I advised. Grace, Jennifer, and our other entrepreneurs deserve recognition for their innovations and achievements. The publicity strategy reflected our evolved priorities. Rather than seeking personal recognition, we wanted to amplify voices of women who rarely received attention from mainstream business media. Our success would be measured by our entrepreneurs' achievements rather than our own public profiles. David Chen, Techflow's former lead engineer, had launched his own software development consultancy with Sisters Ventures' support. His company specialized in building custom platforms for nonprofits and social enterprises, combining technical excellence with mission-driven purpose. The collaboration had proven mutually beneficial, as David's expertise enhanced our due diligence capabilities, while our funding enabled his entrepreneurial aspirations. Young Jessica Walsh, the intern whom Lucy had once publicly humiliated, was completing her senior year at Southern Methodist University with a guaranteed position at Sisters Ventures upon graduation. Her internship experience had taught us about creating supportive environments for emerging professionals, and her fresh perspectives enriched our strategic planning processes. As we concluded our weekly planning meeting, Lucy reached across the table and squeezed my hand gently. "Thank you for not giving up on us," she said. "I know I made terrible mistakes, and there were moments when ending our relationship completely would have been justified." Her gratitude touched something deep in my heart that had been damaged by years of misunderstanding and resentment. "We both made mistakes," I replied, "but recognizing them created space for something better." The conversation reminded me of childhood moments when we had resolved conflicts through honest communication and mutual forgiveness. Those skills had been buried under years of competitive family dynamics, but they remained accessible when we chose vulnerability over protection. Our success story wasn't about revenge or triumph over adversity, but about the transformative power of truth, accountability, and second chances. Lucy had learned that authentic leadership required serving others rather than pursuing personal glory. I had discovered that hiding achievements to avoid conflict ultimately served no one's interests. Sisters Ventures represented more than a business partnership. It embodied our commitment to lifting up other women who faced similar challenges in accessing capital, building networks, and navigating industries that often overlooked or undervalued their contributions. As we walked to our cars in the parking garage, I reflected on the journey from Sunday dinner humiliation to Saturday afternoon collaboration. The path had included pain, confrontation, and difficult truths, but it had ultimately led us to authentic connection and shared purpose. The winter sun was setting over Dallas, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that reminded me of childhood evenings when anything seemed possible. With Lucy as my partner and our portfolio of remarkable entrepreneurs, that sense of possibility felt completely justified. Have you ever experienced a moment when hiding your true achievements protected you from unwanted attention, but also prevented meaningful connections with people you care about? Family dynamics can be incredibly complex, especially when success and recognition become sources of competition rather than celebration. Lucy and I learned that authentic relationships require honest communication, even when truth feels risky or uncomfortable. I'd love to hear your thoughts about balancing personal success with family expectations in the comments below. Your experiences with sibling relationships, workplace challenges, or entrepreneurial journeys could help other viewers navigate similar situations. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking this video to help others discover it. Subscribe to hear more stories about family relationships, business challenges, and personal growth. And please share this with anyone who might benefit from hearing about the power of truth, forgiveness, and second chances in transforming damaged relationships. Thank you for taking this journey with Lucy and me. Remember that every difficult family dinner, every moment of feeling unseen or misunderstood, and every challenge in building authentic success contains seeds of transformation. Sometimes the most painful revelations lead to the most meaningful connections. Wishing you courage in your own truth-telling and success in building relationships that celebrate rather than diminish your achievements.